Hey BGA class, after much jumping back and forth trying to figure out the best way to do this and making sure it's a usable technique for you guys, I came up with something. Let me show you. I made this palette. I made it from this image, which is from Ori and the Lost Forest. And then I also did that technique that I'm going to point out the website again, but I did the technique that you build it from scratch. So, I mean, they're both okay. They're both great, but I just want you guys to get an idea of how to build a color palette and if you want a color palette. Now, remember what we talked about, that only parts of these are going to be used when you're painting, at least to start with, but you want to have a good selection to work from so you can get your complementary colors or whatever you want. So let's take a look at the website real quick and I'll show you what I found. It's this one. So this is the one that we talked about yesterday in class. We didn't have a lot of time to go over it, but basically what we're looking for is this right here to start with. Now you can build your own if you follow through on this website, which is in the link in the homework, which I'll repost with the new homework link. And what you do is you pick that favorite color, that dominant color out of Ori or whatever games you're choosing, and you would use that and then go plus and minus all the way up and down, and it gives you a variant of colors for that. So that's cool and stuff, but I want you guys to be able to jump in a little bit faster, and just to get the idea of the color sets, let's talk about this. So instead of building our color palette by doing one up and one down every time, we're going to get our color palette from an image like I had you guys get, and we're going to use that image to create a color palette. What I found, and again I'll put this into the homework link or in the document, is that there's a couple of things you could do. You could go to CSS, or you could go to Photoshop's website, Adobe's Photoshop, and get a 5 palette thing, or you can come here. And the problem I don't like with this one is that it's a really great palette, but what I have to do is, which is pretty much what I'd have to do anywhere else, is make a copy or cut this out and then use that to paste into Photoshop, which isn't what I'm going to do, but this palette's not in the order I want it to be. So I kept looking and I found this one. Okay, so this one gave me a color palette, the darker palette, the medium palette, and the light palette. And it gives me a bunch of selections. I want 9 colors. And what I'm getting out of this is 8. And I have a really dark one, and I get to pick which ones I want. And then I can add the bright one at the end. Excuse me. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it, but I'm going to do it this time for a different color. This palette that we're looking at earlier, yeah, this palette actually came from here. And if you look, these colors right here are where I got these. Now, I will talk about this, but I did edit some of these to make them feel a little bit more coherent all the way through here. And then I added a bright white one based off of this one, which is this color here. So anyway, we can come back and look at that in a second. But what we need to do is get our new palette. So you go to this website, and the link is in the homework assignment too. And then you come up here and you click the picture you want to use. And in this case, I'll use a different picture from Ori. I'll grab this one. Now this one still has let me show you which one I'm using here. There's the test palette I was doing on that one I didn't like. Let me open it. It's this one. Same game, different palette. Now the only thing I haven't done in this one is cut this out. So I'm going to get some greens in there I may not want to do. And if you have that same problem, that's fine. We're not looking to have everything. So let's just go ahead and crop it out so we don't even have to dance with that. And then what I'll do is I'll save this file, which I had saved as Ori 2, and save it as Ori 2A, just like I did with this one, 1 and 1A. Okay, so I'll save that out, get rid of the interface if it's interfering with the color palette we're using for the room. Okay, and then we'll come back to our internet program here, and we're going to go choose Ori, and we'll say Ori 2, and we'll say open 2A, and then get palette. And what it does is it picks out your palette for you. And this is a really good palette, but there's so many even colors inside of here that it's great for this image, and it's okay for this image. But honestly, if you're going to start painting palette stuff later, you're going to use different methods to get to that many colors anyway. I'd rather you paint it rather than have this many to pick from, more or less. So what we're going to do is take this, and we're going to use these base ones here. What I found is that I can click on this guy here and then click on a texture or a color and it'll pop it in there. If I go from the back to the forward, it doesn't actually fill it in that way. It fills it in the opposite direction. So what I need to do is clear this real quick, and I'm going to grab this light one right here, and then I'm going to grab this one, and you'll see it'll move it down, and then I'll grab this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So I have 3, 6, 7, 8. And it's not enough really, but that's going to have to be close enough. Now the tool that I usually use is called Jing, which is the same company that makes Camtasia. It's free and stuff, but for those of you who don't have that, if you do a search in your, I don't know, where am I? It's up on the top up here. But if you search for Snipping Tool, what you get is this. If you just do a search in your home menu, which is on a different screen, so don't waste our space, you get this thing called Snipping Tool. It's built into every version of Windows since like Windows, well, for quite a long time. So you click on that and you say new, and it'll overtake your whole screen, and all you have to do is click and drag a box around the colors you want to grab. And then you can move it off to the side. I'll move it up here, and then I'll go back to Photoshop, and I'll come in here and I'll say copy. I think I can just copy. It's been a while since I've used it, so forgive me if I'm wrong. And then I'll just come in here and say new, and hopefully, yeah. And if I say paste, there's that, what I just made. So everything you have is built into your system, and that's cool. So here's another trick. I don't know if you guys know this about Photoshop, but you can have multiple, and we really don't need this open anymore, so I'm going to close and get it out of the way. You can have multiple windows open at the same time. A lot of people do that. Other people just drag things out and go like this. And honestly, that's fine. I just like doing it like this. Arrange, and then saying to vertical, so I have 2 in a row. And then what you do is you pick the, I'll get rid of this array picture. You pick this palette start, which I'm going to give you a copy of this, so before you say anything, you're going to get a copy of it. You pick the palette start, and that's where we're going to go. Now, you're going to get, in palette start, you'll notice, let me show you what I did here. Let me hide the palettes here. Close this, hide it. I've made you a master line, so you can fill in these lines in your palette to start with. Makes it super easy, and then it's just copying and pasting, collapsing kind of stuff, and then I'm changing the saturation or the brightness, whatever it is. So let's do it. Let's see, how would I do that? Well, the easiest way to do that is if I could do the color swatch, right? And if I could go G, and I can come down here, and I'll say this is the darkest. And, you know, if I decide I want that to be the darkest, I almost want it, no, let's use that as the darkest, that's fine. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab that bottom layer, which I'm still looking at over here. See how this is highlighted? That's the layer, that's the environment. Don't get confused by that. We could do it the other way if you'd rather. But anyway, I've made a mask, and each of these masks is 1, 2, 3, all that set up for you. So if I come in here and I just do a fill, it's going to fill in that color. And I don't know if I grabbed it. Let me grab that color again. There we go. It's going to fill in that color. And if I go up one more and I grab this one, fill in that color. I go up one more and I grab this one, I fill in that color. I go up one more and I grab this one, and I'll fill in that color. I'll go up one more and I'll grab this one, fill in that color. I'll go up one more, obviously, and then just repeat the steps here real quick. And then let me get to that. And then you'll notice that I have one more. So what I did in this one is I just went higher. I refilled it with the brightest one, and then I went into hue saturation, which is Control U if you don't know, and just turned up the lightness. I think I did it like 50. Let's do 75. Let's get it now. Let's really in the middle here, but let's do 50. Let's do in the middle then. Sorry. 63 there. So now I have, and this one was a lot better than the other one, but if you need to, if this doesn't look like a nice clean gradient, if there's some things that are popping in your eyes that you don't like and it's your piece and you're trying to base it off something else but it's still your piece, then you can always come back to those layers and go to you and just mess with, let's see, I want this more bright or this dark or whatever you want, and you're fine to do that. Okay, so now we have our first palette, and if we remember how they did it in theirs, let me get back to this over here. He had one, and that's what we have. And don't worry about it being that length. I'm preparing you for the next parts. So then what he does is he dupes the layers, and then he changes all the hues, 45 positive or 45 negative. Up, negative as it goes up, and positive as it goes down. And by the end, you have a palette of 8 different color sets. So let's do that with this. So here's ours. We're going to grab it. Now, the easiest way to do this is to either, there's 2 ways to do it, but let's just grab all these layers and Control J, which is duplicate layers. And you'll see now I have 2 sets. And then yours may say copy on it. That's fine. I turned the copy settings off. If you guys want to know how to do that, I can show you that on Monday. But Control and then E will collapse it. So I just copied it and then collapsed it. And then what I like to do is I like to move it out of the master and then go back and hide the master. So it's out of the way. I know exactly what I'm dealing with. Okay, so now I have this. And depending on how you want to do it, I can say Control or Alt and drag a copy out and hold Shift as after I start dragging. If you hold Shift, it snaps, as you know. So, yeah, except I did it too late. So, Shift, and it goes down. And the only trick one is that one is the one I'm working on, so I need to pull it underneath. And what I do is just say 3, because I know I'm putting 4 in the middle, just so I have a number on here. And then what he did, and I think it worked, is if you go to Control U, all he did was he turned the hue up 45 for going down, and see how bright it changes the colors. But notice that the saturations and the brightness all seem to live in the same world. Okay, so if I come down again, oh, not that way, sorry. If I come down again and Shift and drag, so it's like that, you'll see that, look, there's another room for one more, because I planned it out. Move this down 1, 2, that, and then Control U and change this 45, and then we'll do it one more time like that, and move this down so we know which one we're looking at. We change this last number to 1, and Shift U or Control U and 45. Okay, now we come back up to the top one, and if you have your selection set to auto select, you can just grab that one there. And then Shift and drag it up. This one we don't have to change the order, but we should still number them. So I'm going to change this to 5. And it should say colors, but I didn't do the right letters there. So, and this one, oh crap, I did it backwards. Well, that's interesting. Let's see what happens. Negative 45. Okay. So what we're going to get, and you'll see, since I'm going 45 and it's a, 45 times 8, because we're making 8 colors. Let me pull up my calculator here. I'll show you. We have 45 is what we're pushing our saturation to, times 8 equals 360, because that's the amount of colors that we have in our palette, our saturation numbers. So you'll see. So again, I did it backwards. I actually was positive up and then negative down, but that's fine. I think it should be fine because it's going to end up in the middle anyway. Oops, I did that wrong again. I've been doing it this way. Make sure I have enough room. Yeah. Take this one, maybe it's 6, and then do Control U. And change this to negative 45, and then drag it up another time, and then we do 7, and then Control U, and negative 45. See, we're already going back to the blues, and then one more time up here at the top. That's good enough. Control U. -45. And there, you can almost see how they would have lived together. Okay, so that's what he did. Now, this is based off that color palette that from that Ori thing. And you have to remember, we're not trying to say that one picture has all these, that we're using color, making this color palette for that one picture. We're making this color palette for the whole game, meaning that the values and the hues and saturations feel the same. They feel like they're in the same family because they come from a master values. And when you're actually doing painting or texturing, you can use these values as your bases to get to the same place. And that's part of the trick of working. Okay, so I could just dupe these again like this, Control J and Control E, and what it does is it collapsed it down. Because the next thing he did is he did a saturated, these are what these are, and then he did the desaturated version. And to get the desaturated, he just grabbed everything on this but the darkest and lightest. He copied, pasted, Control T, flip it horizontally, move it over, and look, it fits inside of there just pretty good. I mean, I know there's a little bit of edge space. Let me pull this back a little bit there. And then all he did for that one, and I changed my version of it, but he changed the saturation. I think he went -75, but you can do what you need to do, or -75, sorry. Okay, so that one, you know, I like color, but I get it, -75. You can do less. It's your palette. I'm not controlling what you do with it. I just did -65. And now we have a new palette. If I just collapse these two together, and then we can either get rid of these or make another folder and put those in there, and then I can open my palettes and throw this inside of there. So that first palette I made was a lot softer. You can see that because each of these is based off this center texture color right here. And then it went up from there and down from there. So that made it control a lot softer because it was based off this first texture. Whereas for this one was based off of that blue image that we had from Ori. Okay, so let me pull that back up over here. Open recent, we'll do Ori 1A and open recent Ori 2A. So we'll just drag these two over here. And then what I actually can do too, if we want, is I could say arrange and make it, arrange, come on, arrange, and do 3 vertical. So I could do this third Ori over here. Okay. And again, a color palette's a way to start and a way to control the narrative, as we talked about yesterday. There's so much controlled with the color of the game. But this one, if we look at it, and you know what, I like 2 better so we can see the palettes next to them. So let's go back to range 2. Interesting that I put it over there. Okay. 2, okay, they're both there. So this palette was based off of this blue, and you can see that center line, that first one I made, just like in the orange one, is this blue, and it got those colors from that website saying that a lot of these blues are in here. They were built inside of there. And then we can look at the other one and go to Ori this one and come to here and turn on that one. Oh, not that one. Sorry, turn off this one, and there's the other one. You know, you can see a difference. It's got a lot brighter. Look how dark these edges are, and look how bright these edges are, how bright those edges are. They don't go quite as dark. And you know, it's an interesting thing to look at, and I just want, one of the real exercise here is getting you used to thinking about using color and how you could get a palette that's based off the same color scheme. In a perfect world, the question I have is, let's see, yeah, this goes deeper than this one, so you know, it depends on where you start and what you're looking for. But it's an interesting thing, and it's something we can try, and I want you to try out. If you do pixel painting, this will be important. And if you remember from the website why it's important real quick, it's not this whole palette that he has that he's talking about. What he's talking about is, and he puts it in swatches, and if you want, that's a pain in the butt to do, and I don't really think that's a need to do that, except for that way you can save it. If you save the image with the swatches on there for you, that's just as easily. This one, you have to actually go to each one, delete them all, and then import them all one by one, and it's 128 in this case. But remember, he used that palette, and he's using the colors, certain colors from that palette for each area. He's not using that whole palette in every picture. And if you look down, he's got different feels for the environments just because he's overkilling it. And if you started thinking in this, now this doesn't have to be pixel painting, but if you thought of this as a standard picture, like something from your environments that you like, and you use that color palette to saturate it to start with, then you could do the realistic stuff, but you're basing it in these colors and they would all fit together better. We can do some of that stuff technically with LUT stuff, which is inside of engines. But for what we're doing today, what I want you to do, I really want you to have an exercise working with color. And again, these are all the same palette, or some supposed to be the same palette. And then he did all that work from it. And if you want, like I said, the link will be in there, and Theory and Defenders is in there. This guy, it's definitely not the kind of game that you may or may not make, but his palette, this is different than the palettes he was using there, but he used the same kind of palette control to do this kind of stuff. There's a lot more tricks and stuff he did, so you don't look like you're repeating as much, but we'll talk about that if we ever get to pixel shooting painting. Anyway, I just wanted to give you that heads up and give you the tutorial. So what I need from you each is find 3 images from 3 games and pick 1 image from each of those games that you pick, and make a color palette set like this for each one. Pick a different color palette from each. So if one of is, if you have 3 games and you want to look for one of the palettes to be more like a blue or orange or a red, or you can look at the lecture and pick, you can do all kinds of stuff. But for now, just pick 3 pictures from 3 different games that have 3 different feels to them, and do 3 color palettes based off of what I did. And I'll give you guys this Photoshop file so you can build it really fast, and you don't have to worry about the stuff I was going to eventually have you do. This should be a lot faster, but it still gives you the same exercise. On Monday, we're going to come into Photoshop and just recolor some of these images to see how much different they feel with us doing it. And that's kind of like what an LUT, a technical way of putting a filter over a camera does. But anyway, I hope that explains. If you have any more questions, if you have questions, go ahead and email me. Sorry it took me this long to get back to you. I'll talk to you later.